So I think the recording started. So welcome everyone. This is our third session for our Decoding Dementia gathering. We're very excited to have you all. This is obviously in support of the Activity and Life Enrichment Professional. The work of Activity Strong is started by Link Senior, but obviously we do this in partnership with great organizations, which include Activity Connection, NAP, and NCAP. As I mentioned, well, my name is Charles. Sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. And at Link Senior, we have strong values, as I mentioned before. One of them is old people are cool. We think that everybody is cool, including our elders and residents. And then the other one is Activity Strong. If you have any question about Link Senior, feel free to shoot us an email or get in touch with us. But starting our session, let me just kind of share a few housekeeping reminders. We collectively, you, the audience, can earn up to 3 NAM, NCAP, NCTRC, and or NCCDPC credits. They're available for you. To earn a credit, you need to attend a full session, so as few as 1 and as many as 3. To do so, please, obviously, 1, attend, but 2, fill out the survey no later than midnight this Friday, September 8th, so we can process it and issue these credits. And know that just given the large number of attendees, certificates will be sent throughout next week. So starting on Monday 11th until September 15th, Friday. If you have any questions, feel free to send them at webinars, with an S, webinars@linksenior.com. As a reminder, this session and actually all sessions are recorded. So feel free to enjoy them whenever you want. They'll be available on our website. And please, if you think that any of your friend or colleague or anyone in your organization or outside of it might benefit, please forward them to them. As a reminder, using Zoom webinar, we're using the chat and the Q&A feature. If you're using the chat so that everyone can see your contribution, make sure you select everyone. And if you have a question specific for the panelists, make sure that you select the Q&A feature. It's easier for us to manage the interaction there. As a reminder, very important reminder, please have fun, learn something. We had a few discussions during the second session about the future and the fact that some of the future is present, but I think that all of that is really important. Obviously, we need to continue to, quote unquote, have fun. And as importantly, I just also, on behalf of my team, on behalf of the Validation Training Institute, Dr. Cameron Kemp's Center for Applied Dementia, Research in Dementia, and David Troxell's Best Friend Approach, we want to thank you for what you all do every single day. As an activity director, I am a little biased, but I think that activities is essential to senior living. Reminder of that. So now that the introductions are done, let me move to our third session. So as I mentioned before, and again, these are not my words, Mallory DaCosta, or one of our panelists in our second session, she explained it briefly, where our first session today was all about the what, what our person-directed approach. We had 3 amazing examples. And then the second session was why, like why should we go further and why the different stakeholders are so important. And the third session is really how. So what we thought is bringing representatives of these 3 approaches, person-directed method and practices, and issue, in a very friendly way, but issue to you all a challenge. So we thought about building an idea of 30-day challenge. And so I'm very excited. We're going to start with Nancy, and we're going to go to Evan, and then we're finally going to go to Kathy. And each of these professionals who have years of experience in this field and years of experience in these 3 methods are going to share with us a few ideas on how to bring these methods back in our organization, benefit from them, and allow our residents to benefit from that. So Nancy Brown is the Deputy Director for Communication for the Validation Training Institute. And Nancy, I'll let you take it away from here. I'll be off camera. If you need anything, let me know. And then once you're done, please let me know, and we'll move the conversation to Evan. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It's been a privilege to be part of this event with these amazing panelists. And so I'm really excited to be able to share some validation techniques that you can take with you and practice in your daily lives, in your daily practice, and to challenge you to use these techniques for the next 30 days. That's our goal here. As our techniques in validation, we are reinforced by all the different panelists from Vicki and Cameron Kemp and David Troxel from the very beginning to our second panelist. And so everything is connected, and that is the beauty of this particular webinar series in Decoding Dementia. If you would share the screen for the PowerPoint, Megan.
Sure. So Nancy, I put it in the chat box here for people to share. Did you want to share from your screen, or would you rather?
I can do that. Sure, I can do that.
Fantastic. And I'll drop the slides in there again as well for the chat.
All right. In validation, we are wanting to connect with the emotions, the real person that we see in front of us and the emotions that they are expressing in that moment. We start the entire process by centering ourselves. Why do we center? Naomi teaches us that you cannot cross the street if there's too much traffic in the way. And what do we mean by traffic? We're so busy in our daily practice. I'm a practitioner as well. I do this and I practice this every single day, and sometimes many times during the day in my challenging encounters with a lot of my clients. It is something that I model and train my volunteers and my coworkers. It is central to every single technique that we do. It helps us to open ourselves to other people. When we actually spend a few moments putting our stuff away so that we can concentrate fully on the person in front of us. Because what they need in that moment is our undivided attention. Now, validation or interactions with our residents, our clients, doesn't take a lot of time. With practice, 30 seconds, 2 minutes can make all the difference in the world. It helps us as individuals and as professionals or family caregivers to feel stronger and more confident in what we're doing. And we are able to enter that person's world if we truly are centered and with that person. It relieves us of stress just by taking a deep breath. Just by releasing our own tension and giving oxygen to our muscles and our brains relieves the stress in our own bodies. And heaven knows we have and experience that every single day, not only at work, but in home and other parts of our lives. But centering also helps us to release our internal dialogue. Centering has our clients and our family caregivers and professional staff have told us that centering has become the most important technique that they've learned when being trained in validation, because it is the cornerstone, it is the foundation that makes all the other techniques work and makes them more effective because you're with that person. So we've had an amazing webinar so far. And so if you would just take a few minutes and just take a deep breath, close your eyes if that works for you, and take a deep breath. And let it out. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Centering can take a variety of ways, and this is all what depends on what works for you. Some people are very visual. They like to close their eyes. We can imagine your favorite vacation this past summer, or a place you wish you could have gone, except you were too busy with all other different types of responsibilities. You can go to that place, and sometimes just feeling, if it's a beach, the sand between your toes, the warmth of the sun, the sound of the waves can take you to that really centering moment. Perhaps you're more auditory. Perhaps it's a song that you'd like to sing or to hum to yourself. This is something that you'll do just before approaching that resident or having that particular moment with them. Also, you can be kinesthetic. You can press a particular point on your palm and release. My reflexologist, Oran, taught me that in this particular center point, just by pressing that can release a lot of pressure. And for some people, that might work. Whatever works for you, it doesn't take a lot of time. And with practice, you can do it in a minute or less. So let's take just a moment and take another deep breath in with our nose, out with our mouths, and feel the energy that comes to us by just putting aside all of those other busy moments that we always have that are distracting us. So I challenge you for the next 30 days, practice centering at home, centering with your family, with your spouse, with a loved one, with your residents, with an older adult, with your friends. Every time and especially when you don't know what to say, that is the best time to center. Next, observation and calibration. In the last panel, Katie mentioned how important it was to observe the emotions that are being expressed by the older adult. That is so important to be able to, before even approaching that older adult, is watching what emotion are they expressing. And in validation, we call it observing and calibrating the micro expressions. Can you actually get into that physical space that you see on their face? Are their brows furrowed? Is the mouth down? Or are they smiling? Is it tense? Are they angry? Are they sad? And where are they breathing? Are they breathing shallowly from the chest or deep in the belly? Are they wanting to move? And you've got to be ready to move with them. All of those expressions are so important, even before you approach that older adult. So take a moment and even practice, like I said, with your family, fellow staff members, and practice what that person looks like before. Practice your facial expressions. Get your whole body in that particular mode so that it helps you to more easily move into empathy with that particular person. And that's what we're looking for, emotive empathy, so that you connect with the emotion that's being expressed at that particular time. We see in these pictures examples of some good observation and calibration prior to the approach, and some that it's not so good. And also be prepared for distance, making sure, and in these pictures are demonstrating the appropriate right distance. Some particular residents may need more distance, more physical distance. If they are in the more advanced stages, they may need much more closeness. Another thing that's very important is respectful eye contact. How many times we're so busy in our lives that we're glancing at our phones, we're looking here, we're looking there, just because so many things are distracting. Perhaps we have to look at so many different things, but that particular older person knows whether or not you are with them. They know whether or not you really care. And that very important, respectful eye contact is such a critical piece of connecting with them and communicating with them. Along with that encounter, when you get on their same level, that's where the eye contact is so important. How many times do we see or we approach a resident from a standing position? How many times do we touch them on the shoulder from behind? We have to remember that people with dementia have limited peripheral vision. And for some people, they can see only through the left or the right if you were to put binoculars on. They don't have that peripheral vision. So you coming from any other position besides facing them, that could startle them, that could throw them off. It makes the encounter even more challenging. And then getting on their eye level, which is so important. Standing above is also like a power relationship. And that is something we truly want to avoid, is that we want to speak to them adult to adult. That's where voice tone is so important. A respectful voice tone. In the first panel, Vicki and Cameron and David talked so much about the older adults experiencing exact same emotions that we do. We want to be heard. We want someone to respect us by looking at us directly in the eyes so that we know that they are hearing us. We know that they're paying attention to us and what we're saying and what we're feeling. And the older adults that we work with are no different, absolutely no different. On our, I'll stop sharing now. And I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat. And I want to, if anyone has any particular questions or any particular situations that they want to share, yes, there's Vicky's email. I'll put mine in the, oh, great. Thanks, Megan. You can reach me as well. We are open to we have all sorts of training on our particular website. We have monthly meetings for anyone, free monthly meetings for anyone interested in learning more about validation or wanting to share experiences. We have people involved who are families, professional caregivers, anyone interested in validation is more than welcome to be included in those kind of monthly meetings. Any other questions? And there's something in the chat. Thanks. Okay, great. So thank you. And so exactly. So my challenges are centering, observing and calibrating, and observing your particular resident, and making sure you use respectful eye contact with a respectful voice tone. Thank you.
Love it, Nancy. These are essential part of validation, essential part of dementia care, and actually essential part of just being humans, like we said before on our first and second session. So as a reminder, the idea is to give you nuggets that we can, as professionals, use in our daily life, and please use it extensively within the next 30 days and beyond. The idea is to try to create a habit if it's beneficial to you, and please share some of these outcomes either on our Facebook group or by email to all of us, panelists and moderators. And again, if you want to plug anything on our Facebook group, we would love to one, see them, share them, and encourage you and your organizations to continue further. Thank you so much, Nancy. Now moving on to our second quote unquote guest of the day. We have Dr. Evan, let me show my screen here. Dr. Evan Shelton, who is the Innovation Officer for the Center for Applied Research in Dementia. Thank you, Evan. I'll let you take it away from here, and feel free to share your screen and or share your resources.
Hi, Charles. Thank you very much. It looks like I cannot share my video. Maybe a host needs to enable that. But I'll say thank you so much to Charles and Megan with Linked Senior for inviting me. I've been really looking forward to this opportunity. So it's wonderful to be with you all. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. Okay, I hope you all are able to see this. This is a 30-day challenge on remaining strengths. And I'm gonna give you two challenges to work on in this session, all related to residents' remaining strengths and how to use those strengths in activities programming. So I just want to start with the Montessori philosophy on activity. I know if you attended the earlier sessions, you probably heard a lot about this, but we believe that activity is not just entertainment. Activity programming in senior living is not about putting on a show for our residents, right? Activity is everything we do from the minute we get up in the morning to the minute we go to bed at night. And for most of us, entertainment is a piece of that, but the most rewarding activity is generally the purposeful activities that we do, our roles and our responsibilities. These are things that give us a sense of control. They give us a sense of accomplishment, a role at the place that we live, as well as an opportunity for self-expression and learning and exploration. It really is one of the most important aspects of life is our activity, the things that we do. And so in order for us to find opportunities for residents to engage in purposeful activities, we need to know what their remaining strengths are. We need to know what kind of skills they still have and how to take those skills and apply them in everyday activities programming where they live. So challenge number one is built around this grid. And this is the first handout that you all should have received. And this is a grid of remaining strengths in dementia. I'm sure most of you on this call have heard some of the tragedy discourse of dementia, the terms sufferers and the focus on losses and so on and so forth. We try to really flip that on its head. Instead of thinking about what is no longer a strength, what remains? And so that might be sensory skills. Sensory skills are really long-lasting skills in dementia, the ability to hear. So we might think music for that. Smell, we might think food or like a baking club, or even our own personal care products, the taste of our toothpaste, the smell of our shampoo. You know, these are things that trigger long-term memories and they're familiar to us. Motor skills, using tools, imitating actions. Really important remaining strength is procedural memory. So those things that we've learned how to do throughout our lives. If you have residents that know how to knit or play an instrument, chances are even far into their dementia, they can still do those things to some extent. Social skills, so being able to express an opinion or carry on a conversation or greet somebody or to answer yes or no. These are all social skills, right? And then cognitive skills, counting, using a template. So maybe using a template to help set the table at dinner time is one resident's role. Following written instructions, reading out loud, identifying colors, right? These are all strengths. And if we get creative, we can really think about how to use those strengths to tailor roles for residents in activities programming. So you can print off this sheet, and for each resident, you can start kind of circling strengths that you think that person still has. This is kind of an exercise in discovery. So you may not know if a person can still do one of these things, or if this is a remaining strength. Other staff may have their ideas, and so it's kind of a formalizing of this this discovery of what a person can still do. So let's look at an example. This is a kind of a prototypical social event in memory care, the ice cream social. And so a typical ice cream social might look something like this. It goes on the activities calendar, right? 3 p.m., staff bring residents to a common area. The staff maybe put on some music. Somebody from dietary brings the cart with the ice cream. Staff scoop out the ice cream, they put it in bowls, they pass it around. Residents eat the ice cream. The staff collect all of the empty bowls and they clean up, and that's a wrap, right? And they go on to the next thing or whatever it might be. So let's think about that. Every activity includes a series of tasks, right? Whatever it might be. And the goal for us as activities professionals is try to match the level of challenge in that task to the level of skill that the person still has. In a program like this ice cream social, we're doing everything for the residents. They're not doing anything themselves. They've been taken to this event, everything's done for them. They get the ice cream, they eat the ice creams themselves, but that's about it, right? So looking at this graph, on the left, we've got, challenge. So how challenging is the activity? For this particular ice cream social, of course, the challenge level is practically 0. And then on the right, or on the bottom, we have skill. How much skill does a person have to be able to accomplish the thing they're being asked to do? So we've got 8 residents in this graph. You can see that they have varying levels of skill, but they're all well below what's needed for this ice cream social activity. And so what we might see is boredom. And we might expect to see boredom when residents aren't really doing anything. They're not really engaging on their own. So let's talk about how we can take this activity and make it more person-centered and more engaging based on residents' strengths. And so this builds on the Montessori philosophy. Everything you do for me, you take from me. So this is really about an event done by the residents, not for the residents. So in a Montessori ice cream social, it might start by residents making and sending out invitations ahead of time. Now, what's needed for residents to make invitations? Well, maybe one resident has an ability to write. They can actually write the invitations. Maybe another resident who's artistic wants to make the artwork that goes on to the invitations. Residents who have maybe some cognitive strengths can brainstorm what to include in the card. Somebody who has manual dexterity can put the actual invitations into their envelopes. Somebody else can seal the envelopes with a dabber, right? So we're breaking down this overall task, sending out invites, into individual roles for residents that are engaging and that match their challenge, their ability level. We might have residents who choose the flavors and toppings. So maybe the resident has the ability to vote or to answer questions or to express preferences. They can be a part of this part of the ice cream social. And then when the event actually comes, residents have roles at the event. So maybe there's a group of residents who are decorating for the event. Maybe there's somebody there who greets others when they come into the room. Somebody who helps to scoop the ice cream. Somebody who helps to put the toppings on. A crew that helps to clean up. You see where this is going. We're taking all of the roles that the staff did in the original version, and we're finding opportunities to engage residents by using those roles. So this is an event done by the residents, not for the residents. And that's a Montessori activity. So now we've got an ice cream social where each of our residents is doing something to contribute to the activity, to the event that fits their ability level. And so we might have, some folks who are more advanced helping to seal invitation envelopes. They're still in this kind of ideal zone. By the way, this is we call this a flow channel, sort of like being in the zone when you feel like you're really doing something well and it's coming easy to you and the challenge matches your ability level. That's the flow channel. So we might have somebody sealing envelopes, somebody deciding on flavors, somebody scooping ice cream. Now this dot down here, maybe we've got a resident who doesn't want to do any of this. They just want to come to the ice cream social and eat ice cream. And that is perfectly fine, right? Individual differences. And so for this person, maybe they're not experiencing boredom. Maybe this is more of a relaxation event for them. Totally fine. But we want to offer these opportunities to residents to be more engaged in the programming that affects their daily life. So the next part of this is reading. And to start this off, I'm going to show you a word. This is really important. I want you to look at the word, but do not read it. Look at the word, but don't read it, okay? As you may guess, this is an impossible task, right? You can't look at a word and not automatically read it. Assuming English is, you speak English and you can read, it's such an automatic process for us. Reading is something that we learn when we're very, very young. It's something that we do automatically, and it's something that's very long lasting in dementia. It can be used as an external memory aid. So Dr. Camp mentioned in an earlier session that when he put the sign out by the water that said, "Help yourself to water," it changed residents' behavior, right? So they can use written language as a cue to do things or to orient them to certain places or as reminders for things, name tags, etc. Sometimes I hear something like this, right? Well, we have a resident and she used to read the newspaper and she used to read her books, but now she doesn't. And so we don't think she can read anymore. Well, there's a very big difference, right, between reading a newspaper with size 8 font or whatever it is, with a storyline and a narrative, than there is to reading a name tag or a sign, right? So challenge number 2 is to conduct a reading assessment with a resident. And this is the second handout that you should have received. Don't assume a person can't read. Oftentimes they can. And I would venture to guess if you do this with all your residents, you'll be surprised by at least one of them who can read when you thought they couldn't. A few guidelines for signs and for written things that you create. Use simple font, so no cutesy curly Q things. We like to use sans serif, nice big font size, and use nice contrast, right? So this yellow on green is really like visually painful on the eyes, makes it hard to read. Use black on white or white on black or a similar kind of contrasting text to background. And this is the actual reading assessment. So for this, we're really just going to ask the person, I want to make some signs, but I want to make sure that they're big enough to read, right? So we're not going to say, sit down, I'm going to give you an assessment for your reading. That is absolutely not the approach. We're going to invite them to participate. Would you please help me? I'm trying to figure out what size font I need. We show the first line. What does this say? Thank you. Can you read this one? What does this say? When the person can't read the line, we say, okay, it looks like that one's too small to read. So I think we need to make sure that the words we print are larger than that. And that's exactly what I needed to know. Thank you so much for helping me with this. Easy. Now, how to use this information? We can take that information and apply it in our activities. Think about name tags. So I'm wearing mine right now. Have you ever been at a function where somebody knows your name, but you can't remember theirs? It's painfully awkward. And residents with dementia, they're around they're around other residents all day long, all week long, right? They know each other's faces, but they might not know each other's names. And a simple name tag can really make a big difference in kind of creating more community and interaction. We can think about how to use this in group reading and discussion activities. We can think about roles for residents, maybe reading the morning announcement, doing morning news where we take turns reading, maybe reading scripture in a religious program. Or we can think about how to use cues, how to use signs in activities. So if, for example, the food committee is deciding menu items, maybe we write down the menu items on a board as a reminder so we can continue having a discussion about those items and maybe vote on them or do something like that. So reading, incredibly powerful remaining strength in dementia. And in general, it's really important to figure out for each resident kind of what their cluster of remaining strengths looks like. What profile of strengths do they still have, so we can really engage them effectively. So I hope that was interesting for you all. If you have any more questions for me, please feel free to reach out. My email is evan@sen4ard. Or check us out on our website. Be happy to answer questions. I know I only had 15 minutes and I'm kind of pushing it, but with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Charles.
Thank you so much, Evan. This is great. Yeah, what we could do, if you don't mind, is move to Kathy, just to make sure that she has time. But if people have questions, we can definitely, if you don't mind staying around, kind of filter through these questions depending on how much time we have at the end. Thank you so much, Evan. And a great challenge. Excited to have everyone consider it. And again, everyone, please, as you consider these challenges, feel free to share them with us either by email or on our Facebook group, our Activity Strong Facebook group. Thanks, Evan.
Thank
Kathy,
you.
so good to see you, Kathy.
I know.
Yeah, so Kathy, sorry, let me share my screen so I can introduce you, but you've been on our Activity Strong webinar, so I'm sure some of us will remember you. Kathy, it's great to have you. Kathy is a nursing professional development specialist, and she has extensive experience and knowledge of the best friends approach, and obviously, given her title here, has an extremely successful nursing background. So Kathy is going to give us a 30-day challenge for the best friends approach. And Kathy, again, thank you so much for being with us. I'll let you take it away from here.
Okay, thank you. Megan, is the PDF of what David sent you in the chat?
Yeah, so this would be the keys to knowing me, right?
Correct.
Excellent. I'm dropping it in right now, Kathy.
Perfect. Perfect.
And Kathy, sorry, Kathy, you sounded a little muffled. Is there any way you could either have the microphone closer to you or increase the sound?
How's that?
A little better. A little better. I'll let the audience chime into the chat if they can't hear well. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I have it turned up as loud as I can. So thank you so much, Charles and team. I'll give you a little insight into my current position. I'm a director of nursing on a Tuesday, what would be our Monday, right? So it's been a busy day, but I have been able to listen in on most of the webinar this afternoon, really some great information. Have a few pearls of wisdom that I'd like to share with you for some of the questions that have come up. But I'm so happy to be here. I come to you from beautiful, sunny Naples, Florida. The weather is fantastic today, not too hot, not too humid. So my background, as Charles said, I'm a nurse, master's prepared with a population focus. I have more than 30 years working in aging services in a variety of roles, staff nurse to director of nursing, to working in the home office and supporting teams implementing memory care programs. So really have fulfilled a lot of different roles. I'm also board certified in nursing professional development. So, that has offered me more insight into adult learning principles and bringing some of the things that I've learned through my best friend's master training certification through participating in webinars with Montessori and others is, how to really bring those core and key concepts to the staff. So I do have a couple of tools that I will share with you. As Megan said, she dropped it in the chat. The title of our document for best friends is The Keys to Knowing Me. And I know during the very first session when I was listening to David, he was talking a lot, actually, all three of our presenters were talking about the life story. And the keys to knowing me is really a scaled back version of that life story. And as many of you are aware, there's so many available on the internet, lengthy 20-page, 14-page. I did a lot of work with David in my previous organization, and we developed a 7-page that was through collaboration. The two of us as we built the program, and David's expertise and consultation, and talking with some of our staff members, and what was that key information we really wanted to gather. Now, we did a couple of neat things, I think, with the life story, and especially with the scale back version that I really challenge you to look at implementing. Maybe you've already had life story in your community, but it's kind of fallen off by the wayside. So I hope that what you'll do over the next 30 days is, inject more enthusiasm in that process. And I'll give you a few keys for how you might better involve the staff in that. One of the things I wanted to say, I read some comments from earlier this afternoon that said some people on the webinar don't feel particularly supported, or maybe they don't feel that members of their administration and management team are on board with the memory care concepts that have been presented today, or that you're really trying to implement. And this is where I am a big fan of perseverance and role modeling. Believe it or not, everything you do in role modeling, all the behaviors and all the tools and keys that you have learned today is having an impact, right? Just this afternoon, I was down, they asked me to go and speak to a male resident. He was very upset with the staff. They couldn't approach him. They described him as being aggressive, and he's trying to hit Kathy, and he's trying to kick. Of course, I go down there and I'm asking him to do something different, right? And so I appreciate that, right? So they're trying to perform ADLs. But I'm always incredibly cognizant of how I approach people. And this has been discussed many times this afternoon, open approach, friendly, getting down to their level. And, and sometimes I'll do little debrief sessions with my staff as well and say, take notice of how maybe they reacted a little bit differently to my communication than perhaps when you were trying to get them into the shower, right? Understood, different things we're trying to accomplish. But I never underestimate the power of role modeling those expected behaviors. It does have effect. It takes lots of repetition, and we know that for people to change their behavior, it takes that repetition and it takes that practice. So you might ask yourself too, is what types of learning activities are we doing amongst our staff that allow them to practice? So we use an LMS, we have in-services, right? And so what methods are we using during those in-services to really promote like that role playing and the practice opportunities? So never underestimate the power of that and role modeling that behavior with people that you perceive as not really being on board. So as I mentioned, I'm currently Director of Nursing, embedded in the regulatory issues and the family issues and the staffing issues, right, and challenges. But I never lose sight of that. And I'm about 6 months into my new position, so I feel like I've gotten to know all of the residents, but I relied very heavily on just a few little points from the residents' life story to interact successfully on our memory care neighborhood. So again, whether it's 7-page, 14-page, or 1-page, David and I did a lot of work in this sphere with the life story and drilling it down a little bit. So the keys to knowing me, 10 questions, right? 10 questions that can help make a CNA's day go really well. If they know these few things, what's your favorite animal? What was your favorite movie? One of the things that David and I did in creating that program is we really pushed our sales and marketing team to have these completed by the family before move-in. So there's one of my practice pearls is, ideally that this is ready to go on the day of move-in to make that transition and to share with staff prior to that move-in. We also did some things. We would take just 2 or 3 of the responses from the life story, and we would create conversation starter cards. And those can be left like at the dining room. How many times as a DON, I talk to my staff about sit down with the residents, make eye contact, engage in conversation with them during meal service when you're assisting them. But how about having a couple of conversation starters like, wow, I heard you raised dogs, right? Or you showed dogs. Tell me about that, and having those things, because otherwise big generation gaps, right? May not have those connections. So having a few things to kind of get the staff started and engaging in those conversations. The other thing that we've done, which is kind of neat, is sort of for training purposes, is reverse that. So maybe your staff do a top 10 card. What are 10 things to know about me? And we've displayed those on bulletin boards. And honestly, you learn a lot about your coworkers, connections, maybe you didn't know that you had, which may go a long way in retaining those individuals, right? They feel connected to one another. Could be a strong indicator. The other thing, and I think David mentioned it briefly this morning, we actually created a case study of an individual, kind of gave a little bio in a paragraph format. And during an in-service, we would ask the staff, hey, what do you think would be the top 10 things or the key things to know about me from this person based on just this little information you have in this paragraph? Now you may find, well, wait a second, like in my particular neighborhood, I have 32 residents. Maybe we're so far behind in life story. Well, then this is a way to get your staff involved. Maybe you schedule half-hour meetings once a week and you say, let's gather up as many staff as we can, activities, nursing, housekeeping, who are in and out of residence rooms. And let's see if we can fill out some of these questions. You never know when someone knows, hey, you know what? I give, this resident really loves chocolate ice cream. And that can go on the keys to knowing me. And so that's a way to sort of get caught up, a way to train the staff, getting them involved, doing their own, or helping them maybe fill some gaps that we're not sure of. And of course, you can make phone calls to family members. Say, we're revisiting our whole life story. We're gonna pick this up where we left off. We're gonna fill in some gaps. So can you just have 10 or 15 minutes to talk with us and answer a few questions? And we know the benefit, right? I challenge my own staff here. I say, if we're playing Lawrence Welk music, I think we're a little behind the times, because I look at the age of our population and we have a rehab unit, a very busy rehab unit. And those people, they don't want to go to activities. They want to get their therapy. They want to go home. But they may not also see themselves in some of the offerings that we have. So we're challenging one another, when we're bringing in performers, are they playing the right decade and era music, right? We have baby boomers that listen to the Rolling Stones and the Beach Boys. And so are we checking in and looking at what, is appropriate for the population that we're serving? And again, we tend to serve a younger population because of the rehab and the nature of the rehab we do here. I think that also I saw a fair number of questions very early on in the first presentation of, how to meet the needs of individuals with younger onset. And I think some of the answers lie in that as well, is knowing the key things about them. What concerts did you go to, when you were younger? And so knowing that and pivoting and adapting, this is where I encourage my staff, and I know we can't always do this. We're always, trying to be very careful of who's on their phone and when. But, I encourage my staff if they're having a difficult time with, shower or bathing, is pull out your phone and put on some music, right? The music, residence preference. But you got to know that first. You got to know the top things. You got to know the keys about knowing me before you can actually use those as interventions. So, again, getting the staff involved in the training, doing short little presentations with the staff, having them fill out a mock or a case study in top 10 things about me or the keys to know about me. And then having them to do their own to share with everyone else might be some strategies that you find very useful. So I'm also happy to take any questions offline and know that I'm in the trenches with all of you, right? And always trying to find what works, what doesn't work, and then communicating that to the staff. And again, really role modeling all the wonderful information that you've heard today. How are you going to challenge your own self and model and role model that information for everyone you interact with? So with that, Charles, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. And so we do have a bit of time. Kathy, if you want to stay on, please feel free to. But Evan and Nancy, if you want to just jump back on. We had a couple questions. Evan, as a side note, somebody was asking how big was the font on your name tag. So maybe you can start and share that. And then just to piggyback on it, we had a number of people asking about, asking or making comments about including other team members. So, your name tag, I would love it because it seems like a great name tag, but if you want to piggyback on that comment, that'd be cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the interest in my name tag. Yeah, so it's a 100-point font, and it's very simple. So it doesn't have the name. I mean, it's got our little logo at the bottom, the little leaf, but even the words are just my full name. So it's really, really simple. Mine is the kind with a magnet backer, so it like kind of clicks to your shirt. I don't recommend this for residents because oftentimes the magnet backers get lost and then you have to order more. I think the clip-on style work really well, or you can use name tents on the table at activities. The lanyards work okay, but sometimes they kind of flip around and sometimes they hang too low if you're seated, like they'll hang below the table. So yeah, a nice big name tag, both for staff and residents. It helps. It's a cognitive ramp. It helps call each other by name.
Thank you. And so the question and comments were about, when you think about the 30-day challenge, how do you invite, what would be your advice, Evan, to invite other team members and other departments?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So I would really think about, I guess two things. First of all is enabling your residents to do more things that you and your coworkers are used to doing yourselves, right? So finding ways to create engagement for residents, I think, is really something that excites staff. Most staff I've found, direct care staff included, are really passionate about their work and about this population. And when they see that level of engagement and enjoyment and happiness, it kind of fulfills the goal itself. Staff, I think, become more excited. The other thing I would think is how do you really feed forward the results? So when you do something that really works, how can you bring the results to the rest of your teammates and say, hey, we did this activity with so-and-so, it worked really well. Or, we tried a written word for signs and a cognitive ramp for this person, and how now this behavior has gone away. That's I think really encouraging to bring other staff members kind of into the loop and just sort of keep building on that success.
Thank you, Evan. And then Nancy, I see that you came on and then came off. But if you want to jump back on and, share, I don't know if you have any specific advice on, again, I thought your centering exercise and your recommendations were great. That your challenge was obviously really good. But do you have any thoughts about including either team members, caregivers, or other people around you? And you're muted.
Certainly. One of the things that we do constantly in my particular setting and working with day center clients is being always aware of the entire room and using techniques and open questions to include everyone in the conversation. Also, giving people time to speak. People with dementia need more time to be able to process information and to be able to speak. We are sometimes very uncomfortable with silence, but when you work with people with dementia, they need sometimes that space. So it's okay for those periods of silence. And also, a lot of times, while activities are so important, and I deal with and implement activities all day long, for me, it's not about the activity itself. It's about the relationship that I build with the individual or the group engagement and the social connectivity with the group that is most important to me. And when I see sometimes an activity like, oh, that didn't go like I thought it was going to go, or it wasn't as successful as I thought it was going to be, I see the results later. They might be communicating with each other more often. They might have better eye contact with staff or volunteers or one another. So sometimes the results are delayed. And that is also a great benefit when you're thinking and observing all of these different, their emotions, their facial expressions. That's really where the validation techniques has really helped me with my particular practice.
Thank you, Nancy. It reminds me a lot actually, what we discussed earlier, just this notion of respect, of inclusion, and allowing other people to be engaged with us, I guess. Any last thoughts from either you, Kathy, Evan, or Nancy before we close? Any last recommendation, piece of advice, or advice about the challenge?
For me, what Kathy talked about, what Evan talked about, it's all about communication. It's all about communicating. And the most important tool that you can do to communicate is to listen. And just be that trusted individual that your resident or that older adult looks to, because they know you have heard them, because they know that you have connected with them on an emotional level. And they will then start to heal themselves.
All right, Nancy. Best way to communicate is to start to listen. I love that. Evan, Kathy?
No, I agree. And again, you can't measure the impact you're having on the staff by just yourself taking the steps, using the right approaches. You have to understand you are having an impact on the staff. So it takes a long time. Perseverance pays off. So yeah.
I would just add that I think this is a human thing. Senior living is a human thing. Oftentimes we get so tied up in dementia and the medicalization of all of it that we forget that really we're all humans. We have similar needs and wants and desires and goals. And when we put that first, I think it's a lot easier to really put everything into context.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Evan. It made me smile because that's just before Kathy started talking, and I forget the name, but somebody in the chat just shared the fact that you are all making us better professionals. And I think that's an amazing way to wrap up this third session and our Decoding Dementia gathering. Evan, Kathy, and Nancy, thank you so much for this 30-day challenge. Very excited to see what people come up with. I hope that you'll do a little bit of it, and also engage with us with the results of that 30-day challenge. Sorry. But again, thank you so much. That was extremely meaningful, and hopefully people will see the changes in their own professional and personal life. Thank you.